The day the aliens came, humanity learned it was not alone. The day after, humanity learned it was considered worthless. The Galactic Council sent their message to every screen on Earth. Tall creatures with skin and cold eyes spoke in translated words. They called themselves and they were the rulers of 1,000 star systems. Earth, they said, was now under observation. Humanity had been classified as Category 7, primitive. This meant humans were seen as animals. Smart animals, perhaps, but animals nonetheless. Ambassador stood in the United Nations building and listened to the alien terms. His hands were shaking, but his face stayed calm. The speaker explained that Category 7 species had two paths. They could become harvest species, which meant slavery and worse, or they could prove their worth through the ancient tradition of the galactic arena. One fight, one human against one alien champion. Victory meant humanity would be recognized as equals. Defeat meant chains for every man, woman, and child on Earth. Asked for time, they gave humanity 1 week to choose their fighter. The world went mad. Every nation put forward their best soldiers. Special forces from America, Russia, China, and Europe lined up for testing. Combat veterans with decades of experience volunteered. Men with muscles like iron and eyes like stone declared they would save humanity. Watch the candidates train. They were impressive. They were strong and fast and skilled, but something in his heart told him they were wrong. He had seen the footage of the alien champion they would face. Unnamed, 3 meters tall, covered in natural armor that could stop bullets. Undefeated for 40 cycles, which meant almost 60 Earth years. 200 opponents dead by his hands. Strength would not win this fight. Knew this in his bones. On the 5th day, walked into his office. He was a young man, thin and serious, who worked as a tactical analyst for the Korean military. He carried a tablet computer and a strange look in his eyes. "I know who should fight," said. Had heard this from 100 people already. He sighed and waved for to continue. Placed the tablet on the desk. The screen showed a video of a small taekwondo studio inn. Inside, a young woman was sparring with 3 men at once. She moved like water flowing around rocks. Every attack missed her. Every counter she threw landed perfectly. She was not big. She was not muscular, but she was something else entirely. "Her name is," said, "she is my sister." Watched the video 3 times. The woman never seemed to be in danger. She never seemed to struggle. It was like she knew where every attack would come before it arrived. "She has been training since she could walk," explained. "Our grandmother, Bora, raised her in the old ways. Not just technique, something deeper. She reads opponents like books. She finds weakness in everything." "She is small," said quietly. "Yes," agreed. "That is why she will win." The military leaders laughed when brought's name to the council. A girl. A tiny Korean girl against the greatest warrior in the galaxy. It was a joke. It was suicide. It was an insult to the soldiers who had volunteered. But remembered something his father once told him. The oak tree is proud of its strength, but the willow survives the storm. He overruled the council, would be humanity's champion. Received the news while teaching a children's class in her studio. She listened to his words on the phone. She was quiet for a long moment. The children watched her with wide eyes, sensing something important was happening. "Okay," she said simply. Then she ended the call and returned to teaching. That night visited Bora. The old woman lived in a small house in the mountains, away from the chaos of the cities. She was past 80 years old now, her hair white as snow, her hands still steady as stone. "They chose you," Bora said. "It was not a question." "Yes, grandmother." Bora poured tea with careful movements. "The alien is strong, armored, undefeated." "Yes." "Are you afraid?" Thought about the question honestly. She thought about the weight of 8 billion lives. She thought about her students, her brother, the world she knew. She thought about the monster waiting for her in the stars. "No," she said finally. Fear is just the body asking questions. I already know the answers. Bora smiled. It was the first time she had smiled in years. Then you are ready. The transport ship came for 2 days later. It landed in Seoul, surrounded by military guards and news cameras. The whole world watched as the small woman in simple clothes walked toward the alien vessel. She carried nothing but a small bag. She wore no armor. She showed no fear. Walked beside her to the ship's entrance. He would go with her as her strategist and cornerman. His face was tight with worry, but he trusted his sister. He had seen what she could do. At the door of the ship stopped. She turned and looked back at Earth. The blue sky, the green mountains in the distance, the faces of people who were counting on her. She took one deep breath, filling her lungs with the air of home. Then she turned and walked into the ship without looking back. The door closed behind her. The engines hummed to life, and humanity's last hope rose into the stars, small and quiet and completely unafraid. Across the galaxy, the galactic arena was already selling tickets. The aliens called the upcoming match the execution. They expected entertainment. They expected blood. They expected the tiny human to die screaming within the first minute. They did not know. They did not understand what humans could become when they had nothing left to lose. But they would learn. The whole galaxy would learn. The Willow was coming, and the storm would break against her. Station Crucible hung in space like a metal moon. It was larger than any city on Earth, built from black iron and glowing lights. Ships came and went like flies around a corpse. This was the home of the galactic arena, where warriors from 1,000 worlds came to prove their worth through blood. Pressed her face against the window of the transport ship. Her breath made small clouds on the glass. She had never seen anything so large, so cold, so alien. Beside her was reading reports on his tablet, his face pale in the blue light. "The arena holds 5 million beings," he said quietly. "The broadcast reaches 50 billion more across the galaxy. Every species sends their champions here. Every species watches." Said nothing. She watched the station grow larger as they approached. The docking process took an hour. When the doors finally opened, stepped onto alien ground for the first time. The air smelled strange, like metal and electricity. The gravity was slightly heavier than Earth, pressing down on her shoulders like invisible hands. Aliens filled the corridor. Had seen pictures, but pictures did not prepare her for the reality. They towered above everyone, their bodies covered in plates of natural armor that looked like dark stone. They moved like shadows given form, their bodies shifting and flowing in ways that hurt the eyes. There were mountains of muscle and bone, each one large enough to crush a car with bare hands. And they all stopped to stare at the human. Felt their eyes. She heard their whispers translated by the small device in her ear. So small. Is that really their champion? This will be over quickly. They will tear her apart. She kept walking. Her face showed nothing. The station masters gave them quarters in the fighter's wing. The room was simple but clean, with 2 beds and a window that looked out at the stars. Immediately set up his equipment, covering one wall with screens that showed footage of past arena fights. "We need to study," he said. "Every fight, every movement, every pattern. We have 2 days to find a weakness." Nodded and sat beside him. They watched together. Was terrible and beautiful. He moved like a storm given flesh, each blow carrying enough force to shatter stone. His exoskeleton was nearly unbreakable, deflecting weapons and fists alike. Opponent after opponent fell before him. Some died quickly. Some died slowly. None lasted more than 3 minutes. Grew more pale with each video. His armor has no gaps that I can see. His speed is incredible for his size. His stamina is unlimited. I don't know how to beat this. But was watching something else. Not the fights themselves, but the moments between. She watched how he walked to the arena, how he stood while waiting for the match to begin, how he breathed when he thought no one was watching. He is proud, she said softly. Looked at her. What? Watch his feet, watch his shoulders. He carries himself like someone who has never lost, never doubted, never feared. Leaned forward, her eyes sharp. He does not guard his left side properly, not because he cannot, but because he has never needed to. No one has ever made him need to. That is not much of a weakness. It is everything. The next day, asked to visit the training halls. Came with her, nervous and watchful. The halls were massive spaces filled with equipment designed for bodies of every shape and size. Warriors from across the galaxy trained here, preparing for their own matches. Was there? The champion stood in the center of the largest hall, running through combat forms. Each movement shook the floor. Each strike split the air with thunder. Other fighters kept their distance, watching with a mixture of fear and respect. Found a quiet corner and began her own training. She stretched slowly, bending her body in ways that drew curious looks from nearby aliens. Then she began to move through her forms, the ancient patterns Bora had taught her since childhood. Her movements were small and quiet compared to, where he was thunder, she was wind. Where he was stone, she was water. Some aliens laughed at her training, others shook their heads in pity. But was not training, she was watching. She noticed how planted his feet before striking. She noticed how his weight shifted when he turned. She noticed how his breathing changed when he exerted himself. She memorized everything, storing it in her mind like weapons in an armory. That night came to their quarters. The door chimed and opened it with trembling hands. Filled the doorway, his armored body blocking the light from the corridor. His eyes were cold and ancient, the eyes of a creature who had killed more beings than most planets held. I am, he said. His voice was deep enough to vibrate the floor. We know, managed. The champion's gaze moved past him too, who sat on her bed with a cup of tea in her hands. She looked up at him calmly, as if a 3-meter killer had not just entered her room. I came to offer mercy, said. Tomorrow I will kill you, this is certain. Nothing can change it, but I can make it quick, painless. A warrior's death with honor. All you must do is accept your fate. Took a sip of her tea. Would you like some? Blinked to what? Tea, it is from my home planet, very calming. The champion stared at her for a long moment. In 40 cycles of fighting, no opponent had ever offered him tea. They had begged, they had threatened, they had wept, but none had ever simply offered him tea. You are strange, he said finally, even for a human. Perhaps, agreed, but the tea is good. Turned and left without another word. The door closed behind him, collapsed into a chair, his whole body shaking. How can you be so calm? He demanded. That creature will try to kill you tomorrow. Finished her tea and set down the cup. He came here to scare me. Instead, I confused him. That is already a small victory. She lay down and closed her eyes. Now I need to sleep. Tomorrow is a big day. Sat in the darkness for a long time, watching his sister breathe slowly and peacefully. He did not understand how she could be so calm. He did not understand where her courage came from, but he knew one thing with complete certainty. He believed in her. Far away on Earth, in a small house in the mountains, Bora lit a stick of incense and placed it before a small shrine. She closed her eyes and whispered words in a language older than nations. Guide her hands, she prayed, steady her heart and show them what we truly are. The smoke rose toward the ceiling, twisting in shapes that almost looked like victory. The arena was a circle of sand 1 kilometer wide. Walls of black metal rose around it, climbing toward seats that held 5 million screaming aliens. Lights brighter than suns blazed down from above, turning the sand into a sea of white fire. The air smelled of old blood and fresh fear. Walked through the fighter's gate with beside her. The roar of the crowd washed over them like a wave. It was not a welcoming sound. It was the sound of predators waiting for meat. Across the arena, another gate opened, emerged like a god of war. His armored body gleamed in the harsh light. Each step he took shook the sand beneath him. The crowd's roar doubled, then tripled. This was their champion. This was their hero. This was the being who had never fallen. Looked very small standing in the center of that vast circle. Her simple fighting clothes seemed foolish next to his natural armor. She did not carry any weapons. She did not wear any protection. She looked like a child who had wandered into the wrong place. The announcer's voice boomed through the arena, speaking in 100 languages at once. Today we witness history. The primitive humans have sent their champion to face the mighty. Will this be their salvation or their extinction? Place your bets now. Stood at the edge of the fighting area, where cornermen were allowed during the match. His tablet showed him his heart rate, her breathing, her muscle tension. Everything was perfectly calm. She might have been sitting in her studio teaching children how to throw a proper kick. The announcer finished speaking. A horn sounded deep and terrible. The match had begun. Charged. They crossed the distance between them in seconds, his massive legs eating the ground like a predator running down prey. His first attack was a sweeping blow meant to take his head from her shoulders. It was fast. It was powerful. It was perfect. It hit nothing but air. Was already moving before started his swing. Not backward, as anyone would expect, but forward and to the side. She slipped beneath his arm like smoke through fingers, passing so close that his armored skin brushed against her clothes. Then she was behind him, and he was swinging at empty space. The crowd fell silent. Turned and attacked again. A kick that could have destroyed a vehicle. A punch that could have cracked stone. A combination of strikes that had killed champions from a dozen worlds. Each one found only air. Moved like water. She did not block. She did not dodge in the way the aliens understood dodging. She simply was not where the attacks landed. It was as if she knew where would strike before he decided to strike there. It was as if she could see the future. In truth, she was reading his body. Every muscle, every shift of weight, every small movement of his eyes. Bora had taught her this art for 15 years. The body always told the truth. The body always revealed its intentions. You simply had to know how to listen. 5 minutes passed, had thrown over 100 attacks. Not a single one had connected. His breathing was growing heavier. His movements were growing slower. For the first time in 40 cycles, the champion was tired. The crowd did not understand what they were seeing. The announcers struggled to find words. This was not how fights worked. The smaller opponent was supposed to die. The weaker species was supposed to fall. That was the natural order of things. But was not fighting by their rules. She had no intention of trading blows with a creature who could crush her with one hit. She had no interest in proving her strength. She was doing something far more clever. She was letting defeat himself. Every missed attack cost him energy. Every failed strike added to his frustration. His natural armor, so heavy and strong, was becoming a weight that dragged him down. He was built for short, devastating fights. He was not built for this. 10 minutes, 15, 20. Stood in the center of the arena, his chest heaving, his legs trembling. He had never felt this way before. He had never needed to feel this way before. Opponents always fell within the first minute. They did not dance around him like ghosts. They did not make him chase them across the sand until his lungs burned. "Stand and fight," he roared. "Face me like a warrior." Stopped moving. She stood 10 meters away, her breathing slow and steady. She was not even sweating heavily. "I am fighting," she said calmly. "You simply do not understand how." In the corner, watched his tablet with wide eyes. Stamina had dropped by 60%. His reaction time was slowing. His core temperature was rising. The unbeatable champion was breaking down and had not thrown a single strike. The announcers finally found their voices. "Incredible! The human is still alive after 20 minutes. This is the longest match in his entire career. What are we witnessing? On Earth, billions watched in shocked silence. They had expected their champion to die in seconds. Instead, they were watching something impossible. They were watching hope. Bora sat before her small television, her ancient eyes reflecting the light of the screen. She saw what her granddaughter was doing. She recognized the art she had taught. "Yes," she whispered, "let him tire, let him doubt, let him understand that size is not strength. Let him learn what all enemies of humanity must learn." In the arena, attacked again. But there was something different in his eyes now, something that had never been there before in 40 cycles of fighting. Doubt. He was beginning to realize that he might not win this fight. He was beginning to see that this small creature, this tiny human, was something he had never faced before. Not a warrior to be crushed, not a victim to be killed, something else entirely. A predator wearing the skin of prey. Watched him carefully. She saw the change in his posture. She saw the questions forming in his mind. She had spent 20 minutes planting seeds of uncertainty, and now they were beginning to grow. The real fight was about to begin. She took a breath, feeling the strange alien air fill her lungs. She thought of her students in. She thought of her brother watching with terrified eyes. She thought of 8 billion people holding their breath across the stars. Then she smiled. It was a small smile, barely visible from the stands, but saw it. And for the first time in his long life of victory, the champion felt something cold crawl down his spine. Fear changed his approach. The wild charges stopped. The thunderous attacks became measured and patient. He had finally understood that rage would not win this fight. Now he moved like a hunter stalking dangerous prey. Felt the shift immediately. This was the real, not the arrogant champion who expected easy victory, but the intelligent killer who had survived 40 cycles at the top. He was hurting her now, cutting off her escape routes, forcing her toward the arena walls where she would have nowhere to run. She let him do it. She needed him to think he was winning. The wall pressed against her back, stood before her, blocking any escape. His eyes glowed with satisfaction. Finally, the chase was over. "No more dancing," he said. "Now you die." His fist came down like a falling moon. Moved at the last possible moment, twisting sideways as his blow shattered the wall behind her. Stone exploded outward. The crowd screamed with excitement, but was already turning, already swinging again, and this time there was nowhere for her to go. The back of his hand caught her across the chest. Flew through the air like a broken doll. She hit the sand hard, rolling 3 times before coming to a stop. The arena erupted in celebration. First blood. Finally, the human was falling. Gripped his tablet so hard the screen cracked. His sister was down. His sister was hurt. Everything they had worked for was crumbling into the sand. He whispered, "Please get up." She did not move for 5 seconds. 10. The crowd began to laugh. The announcers declared the match essentially over, walked toward her fallen body, ready to deliver the finishing blow. Then stood up. Her left arm hung at a wrong angle. The bone was broken in at least one place. Blood ran from a cut on her forehead, painting half her face red. She was hurt. She was damaged, but she was smiling. "You know what humans are," she said, loud enough for her microphone to catch every word. Paused, the crowd fell silent. "We are persistence predators. On our world, we used to hunt by chasing animals until they collapsed from exhaustion. We are not the fastest. We are not the strongest, but we never stop. We just keep coming until our prey cannot run anymore." She straightened her back despite the pain. "You are tired, I can see it in every movement. Your armor is heavy. Your muscles are burning. Your lungs are screaming for rest. But me, I could do this all day." The arena was completely silent now. 50 billion beings watched across the galaxy, none of them breathing. Attacked. It was so unexpected that even hesitated for a moment. The tiny human, broken and bleeding, launched herself at the armored giant like a missile made of flesh and fury. Her good arm moved in patterns faster than eyes could follow. Her kick struck with precision that seemed impossible. She was not hitting hard. She could not hit hard enough to hurt his armor, but she was not aiming at his armor. She was aiming at the joints. Bora had taught her the truth of all armored things. The shell protected the soft parts, but the shell needed gaps to allow movement. Elbows, knees, shoulders, neck. These were the places where even the strongest armor became weak. Had spent 2 days studying. She had memorized every joint in his exoskeleton. She had calculated exactly how much force was needed to damage them. She had planned every strike she was now throwing. Her first target was his left elbow. 3 rapid strikes to the joint where 2 armor plates met. The impact was small, barely noticeable, but inside something shifted, something cracked. Swung at her with his left arm. The arm stopped halfway, frozen in place. The crowd gasped. The champion looked at his limb with confusion. "What did you do?" he demanded. Was already moving. Her next target was his right knee. She dropped low, sliding beneath a punch, and delivered a spinning kick to the joint. Again, the impact seemed small. Again, the damage was enormous. His right leg buckled. He caught himself before falling, but now he could not move properly. His left arm would not respond. His right knee would not bend. He was a machine with broken parts, and the mechanic was still working. "Stop," he roared. "Face me properly." But did not stop. She moved around him like a storm, striking at joints and connections, dismantling him piece by piece. His right arm locked at the elbow. His left knee seized. His shoulder froze in place. The crowd watched in horrified fascination. They had come to see a slaughter. They were witnessing surgery. On Earth, people were standing in the streets, staring at screens, crying and cheering. They watched their tiny champion do the impossible. They watched her tear apart a god with her bare hands. Could not believe what he was seeing. His sister was hurt, exhausted, fighting with only one working arm. And she was winning. Not through strength or speed or size, but through intelligence and precision and an absolute refusal to give up. Threw a final desperate punch with the only arm that still worked. Caught his wrist, used his momentum to spin him around, and delivered a perfect strike to the base of his skull where his armor met his neck. The champion's legs gave out. He fell to his knees, his entire body locked and frozen. His exoskeleton had seized completely. He could not move his arms, his legs, his fingers. The undefeated warrior, the terror of the galactic arena, was trapped in his own shell. Stood before him, swaying slightly from exhaustion and blood loss. Her broken arm screamed with pain. Her vision was beginning to blur, but she stayed standing. "Yield," she said softly. Looked up at her. The fear was still in his eyes, but now there was something else as well, something that looked almost like wonder. "How?" he asked. "You are so small, so fragile, how?" Smile was gentle despite everything. "You asked the wrong question. You should have asked why. Humans fight for their families, their children, their future. 8 billion lives depend on me today. That is why I cannot lose. That is why I will never stop." She held out her unbroken hand. "Yield," she said again, "and live. There has been enough death in this place." The arena held its breath. Every being in those vast stands waited to see what the champion would do. This moment would be remembered for 1,000 years. This moment would change everything. Slowly, painfully, lowered his head. "I yield," he said. The words echoed through the arena like thunder. The words echoed across the galaxy like the birth of a new age. The words changed humanity's future forever. And somewhere on Earth, an old woman smiled and whispered, "She did it." The silence lasted for 3 heartbeats. Then the arena exploded. 5 million aliens rose to their feet. Some screamed in anger. Some roared in disbelief. But many, far more than anyone expected, began to cheer. They had come to watch a death, but they had witnessed something far more rare. They had witnessed the impossible become real. Swayed on her feet, the world was spinning around her. Her broken arm had gone numb, which she knew was a bad sign. Her legs felt like water, but she stayed standing. She would not fall, not now, not after everything. Medical teams rushed onto the arena floor. Alien doctors with strange equipment surrounded, working to free him from his locked armor. Other doctors approached, but she waved them back with her good hand. "My brother first," she said. "I want my brother." Was already running across the sand. He crashed into her, wrapping his arms around her carefully, tears streaming down his face. He was saying something, but she could not hear the words over the ringing in her ears. "I am okay," she whispered. "I am okay, we won." The Galactic Council convened within the hour. The who had called humanity primitive now sat in stunned silence as Ambassador entered their chamber. He walked differently than before. He walked like a man whose people had just earned their place among the stars. "Category 7 status is revoked," the lead announced. His voice was tight as if the words caused him physical pain. "Humanity will be granted provisional membership in the Galactic Council, trade rights, travel rights, protection under galactic law." Bowed his head slightly. "Thank you, we look forward to peaceful cooperation." The eyes were cold. "Your champion fights strangely, she does not seek to kill." "No," agreed, "she seeks to win, there is a difference." News of the victory spread across the galaxy at the speed of light. Every species, every world, every being learned what had happened. A tiny human woman had defeated the undefeatable. A primitive species had proven themselves worthy. The universe would never look at humanity the same way again. On Earth, the celebrations lasted for 3 days. People danced in the streets of every city. Strangers hugged strangers. Old enemies forgot their anger. For the first time in human history, the entire planet was united in joy. Watched none of it. She spent 2 days in the medical wing of Station Crucible, letting alien technology repair her broken arm and bruised body. Stayed by her side, handling the flood of interview requests and diplomatic invitations that poured in from across the galaxy. "Everyone wants to meet you," he said, scrolling through his tablet. "They want to offer you citizenship. They want to make you an honorary war chief. Even they have sent a gift, although I am not sure what it is." Lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling. "I want to go home." Stopped scrolling. "Home. My studio, my students." She turned to look at him. "I am not a hero, I am not a warrior or a diplomat, I am a teacher. I just want to go back to teaching." Her brother smiled. It was the first real smile he had worn since this whole nightmare began. "Then let us go home." The journey back to Earth took 2 weeks. Spent most of it sleeping and eating and letting her body heal. When she finally stepped off the transport ship in Seoul, she was greeted by the largest crowd in Korean history. Presidents and generals waited to shake her hand. Reporters shouted questions from every direction. She smiled politely, said a few words of thanks, and then asked to be taken home. Bora was waiting at the door of her small mountain house. She looked even older than before, worn down by the stress of watching her granddaughter fight for humanity's future. But her eyes were bright with pride. "Bow deeply, I have returned, grandmother." Bora reached out and touched her face gently. "You did well, child. You made me proud. You made all of humanity proud." "I only did what you taught me." "No," the old woman shook her head. "I taught you technique. What you showed in that arena was something else. Heart, will, the spirit that refuses to break," she smiled. "That is something you had from the beginning. I simply helped it grow." They sat together drinking tea as the sun set over the mountains. Neither of them spoke much. They did not need to. Some things were beyond words. 1 month later, received a message from Station Crucible. She was in her studio teaching a children's class when brought her the tablet. The message was from I have thought much about our battle, he had written. I have fought for 40 cycles and I believed I understood combat, but you showed me that I understood nothing. I was a hammer that only knew how to strike. You were something different, something better. I wish to learn what you know. I wish to understand how a creature so small could defeat me so completely. Will you accept me as a student? Read the message twice, then she looked up at her brother. How do I reply? Laughed. You are asking me. You are the one who offered him tea while he was trying to scare you to death. Considered for a moment. Then she typed a single word and sent it back across the stars. Come. 6 months later, a ship landed emerged, towering over the crowds that gathered to see him. He walked through the streets of the city, drawing stares and whispers, until he reached a small taekwondo studio. Met him at the door. She barely came up to his waist. She was wearing simple training clothes and a smile. Welcome to Earth, she said. Class starts in 10 minutes. Bowed, a movement that looked strange on his massive armored body. I am ready to learn, teacher. And so the mightiest warrior in the galaxy became a student of the tiny human who had defeated him. He learned patience. He learned humility. He learned that true strength had nothing to do with size or armor or power. Across the galaxy, other aliens began to whisper a new phrase. It passed from world to world, from species to species, becoming something like a proverb. Never fight a human, they do not know when to stop. But those who truly understood added something more. And if you are wise, you will ask them to teach you why. In her mountain home, Bora watched her granddaughter on the news, teaching ancient human arts to aliens from across the stars. She smiled and poured herself more tea. The willow bends, she whispered to herself, and the universe learns. Outside the window, the cherry blossoms were blooming. Spring had come again, and for humanity, a new age had just begun.